to ensure the fidelity of this implementation check developed by the staff of the Kentucky Department of Education, the University of Louisville, and the University of Kentucky, only schools and/or districts who have received all mandated co-teaching for gap closure professional development may utilize this instrument. There are two resources that will help you become more efficient in your work: the Co-Teaching for Gap Closure Handbook and the Implementation Check Reference Guide. The handbook provides in-depth resources on co-teaching approaches, student engagement strategies, math practice standards, planning templates, and much more. To help guide you through the implementation check process, essential questions are italicized in the reference guide. It is strongly encouraged each implementation check be completed using a paper copy before entering data online. By doing so, you will have an excellent record of your work in the event online data is either lost or incorrectly recorded. Just a reminder, the purpose of this instrument is not to evaluate a teacher team, but rather to determine what supports may be needed to promote both team and student growth. The first pages of the implementation check gather information on the observer, their cooperative region, members of the teaching team, content taught, and also grade observed. Make sure to record the date of your observation, especially if you are observing multiple teams over a short period of time. In addition, this information will be needed when completing the online form. In order to maintain instrument fidelity, all observations must be at least 30 minutes in length. Some indicators may not be present unless an entire class period is observed. The EC1, 2, and 3 are merely placeholders on the paper document. The name of your external coach, your cooperative region, etc. will again appear on the online version of this instrument. You will also notice that the name of the school and members of the teacher team are not listed on the paper copy. However, it's strongly encouraged you note the names of the team members to help with record keeping. The subject section is divided into math, language arts, and other. The other category includes all subjects not identified as either math or language arts. You may also notice as we progress through the PowerPoint, not all indicators apply to all content areas. An implementation check for ELA and other has 42 indicators, while math has 48. But don't worry, the online implementation check will use the subject selection you entered to provide you with the proper number. The handbook or the reference guide can provide you specific information on each of these 6 co-teaching approaches, including what team members will be doing during each approach and how the classroom might even be set up. Now, depending on the instructional content, a team may use more than one approach during an observational period. Therefore, make sure that you mark each approach that you see. It's also possible for teachers not to display any approach. If you can answer yes to the following question: could a paraprofessional have done the same job as one of the team members today? Then co-teaching did not occur. As mentioned earlier, the implementation check for ELA and other content areas is different than those for math. When observing a team, all indicators are rarely marked evident. Well, in fact, non-evident indicators are really utilized by both the internal and external coach to inform future coaching sessions with the teaching team. In addition, the state-level core team analyzes regional and statewide data to determine what, if any, additional training or supports are needed to continue both teacher and student growth. Do both the teachers and the students seem to be accustomed to working through these essential steps of co-teaching? Or quite frankly, is it just something done occasionally, or perhaps even without fidelity? The classroom instruction indicators focus on these essential questions. As the observer, you're greatly encouraged to talk with both the teachers and the students. If co-teaching is truly being embraced, you will quickly find out through these conversations. If the intensity of the instruction you observe is really no different than what you might see in a regular classroom, then co-teaching did not occur there either. Instruction is intentional, and each member of the team has an essential role in this process. Depending upon the classroom approach chosen by the team, the teachers may or may not equally share in instruction. As teachers become more accustomed to each other, the responsibility for instruction should actually become more equal between the two. It is important for you to review your previous implementation checks to ensure teachers are actually using a variety of these approaches. If this is not the case, then additional coaching may be needed. The teacher team needs to be intentional about having students participate in their learning. The degree of student participation may vary given the co-teaching approach. However, students should not be passive participants. Students need to know what they are expected to learn. The learning target should be posted under the plan as part of the PDSA cycle. However, team members need to consistently remind students of the daily target. In order for this indicator to be marked evident, you must observe at least 3 references to the target made by the team. 1, when the target is introduced or reintroduced, the second during instruction of the content, and finally at the end of the class period. Observing the formative assessment of student understanding is the next indicator, and it must be seen in order for it to be marked evident. It is critical the assessment being used and the learning target being taught are aligned. If team members are checking through observation, discuss the criteria used by the team in order to determine student understanding. The last indicator applies to only Level 3 teams. These 2 indicators are for all non-math co-teaching observations. The use of research and evidence-based practices is truly founded within the CT4GC model. In order for these indicators to be evident, both teachers and students need to be demonstrating these practices. Cohort and scale-up trainings generally focused on the work of Robert Marzano and his high engagement student strategies. However, there are other research-based practices that can be used. Examples of students working with these practices may include things like comparing 2 works of literature, determining the importance of events during World War II, or an organizer detailing the steps of photosynthesis that students are using for a review. For these indicators to be marked evident, intentionality is the key. Ask yourself, did the teacher team specifically use or refer to new vocabulary during the lesson? Were students provided opportunities to practice the new vocabulary? And were connections made by the teacher team in order to help students link these vocabulary words with previous knowledge and/or strategies to help retention? If the answer is no, then these indicators are non-evident. NA should only be used if there was no opportunity to introduce or review content vocabulary during the observation. Marzano states in much of his research that if teachers should take every opportunity to teach and or review vocabulary, as it is an essential element for its student learning. Having students become aware of their own learning and then providing them with the tools to achieve this success is truly paramount to the CT4GC framework. These indicators focus on the explicit instruction by the teacher team, on the use of strategies in order to aid and increase understanding and mastery of the students. Students need to be taught strategies in order to help them with comprehension, especially using a variety of texts. A teacher team may use various strategies during instruction. However, if modeling does not occur, then this indicator should be marked as non-evident. The development of a strategies bank is also an essential element of the CCI process. This indicator is only evident if students are actually utilizing a strategy in order to help anchor their thinking, or the teacher team is demonstrating how the strategy can really help guide instruction. The development of a strategies bank may be found beside the due cycle of the PDSA or within a classroom data board. Now, as the observer, you will want to see feedback from students regarding the use of a specific strategy. This feedback may be found in the Student Plus deltas, exit slips, etc. However, if evidence does not exist, then discuss with students how they provide feedback to the teacher team. Finally, depending upon the classroom approach being used, this indicator may be more evident than in other situations. However, in all approaches, opportunities for reteaching and/or enrichment should be evident. These indicators are all specific to math content observations. As mentioned earlier, cohort and scale-up trainings really focused on the work of Robert Marzano. Specific information regarding his work can be found in the handbook. However, other research and evidence-based strategies may also be used. The focus of these indicators is on the opportunities students are given in order to practice what they've learned or are learning. This indicator is not about students completing a stack of worksheets. Rather, it's about having opportunities to explore the content in a variety of ways using an assortment of tools or models. Concrete examples in a math class would find students actually building the problem. Examples could be students working with base 10 blocks, Unifix cubes or counters at the elementary level, or solving problems using algebra tiles in a secondary classroom. At the semi-concrete or representational level, students move from building a model to actually drawing a picture. At this level, students might use tally marks or number bonds or groups of dots in order to solve problems. At the symbolic or abstract level, students are expected to solve problems using only numbers and symbols. This is the highest level of understanding, and one in which some students really struggle. It's been generally thought in the past that secondary math instruction really should focus here. However, research has shown a great need to include all three levels at all levels of math instruction. If you are only seeing instruction at this level, coaching may be needed on ways the teacher team can implement concrete and semi-concrete examples within their instruction. Remember, as an observer, you are not expected to mark all indicators evident. It's rare to see examples of concrete, semi-concrete, and abstract representations within the same math class period. All three require multiple opportunities for student practice. A team exhibiting all three may need coaching on ways to effectively and efficiently implement these models, or they just may feel that all must be seen during an observation. It's possible for a team to cover only a single procedure during a class period, especially if it's a part of a multi-lesson sequence. The learning target under the plan of the PDSA cycle will really help provide guidance. However, asking the teachers or students is greatly encouraged. If, however, during your observation, the teachers had opportunities to demonstrate other ways to solve the problem, but they failed to do so, then mark non-evident. Now, depending on the content being taught, students engaging in exploration in order to problem solve may not be present. You are once again encouraged to ask teachers for clarification. However, if the opportunity for students to complete a bell ringer or explore content existed but was not taken, then once again mark the indicator as non-evident. The exception to this indicators are really more prevalent in higher secondary math, quite frankly due to the nature of the content being taught. If, however, you're observing an elementary classroom where little student exploration or alternative strategies are being used, coaching may need to be done. The 8 mathematical practices are what students will be or should be doing in order to demonstrate content mastery. These are not about teacher mastery. The team should determine which of these practices to focus their instruction during their planning time. This focus can be evident during the questioning of students, the teacher modeling, or student activities. It's possible to see multiple practices being used during an observation. However, there are other circumstances when you will need to note "not observed." Specific information on these practices can be found in the handbook. This information includes observer look-fors and also teacher and student questions. A quick review can also be found in the Implementation Check Reference Guide. The next indicators really center on the 8 steps of continuous classroom improvement. In order to help with finding these indicators, let's look at an example of a classroom data wall. Step 1 centers around clarifying and communicating classroom learning requirements. Some schools require teachers to post all standards for a specific subject or grade. A class learning goal should focus on really what students want to achieve over an extended period of time. Make sure that the goal specifically states the expectation, how it will be measured, and with what tool. For specific references to the steps of goal writing, you may want to refer to the Continuous Classroom Improvement Handbook that you received during the initial CT4GC training. Step 3 focuses on student data. It's really important to check to see if learning results are posted and they are current. Many of the CT4GC schools post the specific name of the assessment rather than just a unit number. Although this practice is not mandatory, it really allows for both teachers and students to quickly see what content they may need to do future review. The mission statement is step 4. It should reflect the expectations of what students will need to do in order to achieve the classroom goal. The statement needs to be designed by both the teacher team and the students. In fact, some of the CT4GC schools actually have the students and the teachers sign the mission statement in order to share with buy-in. The final 4 steps really center around the PDSA cycle. Step 5 is focusing on the short-term learning target. This target needs to be more than just a core content number. Students need to know what is being taught and how they will know that they've mastered that material. The do is step 6, and it's really linked to the strategy tool bank. Here, you should be able to find information on what high-yield strategies are being used by the teachers and also the students. The final two steps are really perhaps the most important and the ones that may need a lot of additional coaching. The study looks at feedback really from both the teachers and the students regarding previous assessments or activities. This step goes well beyond the likes and dislikes and rather needs to focus on what did or did not work and more importantly why. It's truly at this particular stage that students begin to take responsibility for their own learning. The last step is the action or step, where teachers really start to look and make changes of their instruction. All of these changes are based on student input, and so the teachers make adjustments for the next cycle of learning. At this step, the team has two choices, really based upon the student feedback. They can either move forward with new content, or they can reteach the same content and use different strategies or instructional methods. So again, looking at the classroom data wall, let's go ahead and review the leadership and planning indicators. If the mission statement is not posted in the classroom, then you need to select non-evident. Remember, it should also be clear that the mission statement was jointly created by the teachers and students and has become the classroom norm. Classroom goals are found on the data wall or somewhere in the classroom and discuss what the class or the group will achieve this school year. The short-term learning target for the day is found under the plan, and it should match the content being taught. If this is not the case, then you need to mark non-evident. Past targets can also be found sometimes in student data folders. Lastly, student data should be evident and generally found in student data charts or graphs displayed in the classroom. Evidence of each of these indicators really should be found on the classroom data wall. Progress monitoring charts should be current and contain the date of the assessment. Now, once again, encourage teams to include the name of the assessment along with the date given, so reference can be easily made to a specific learning cycle or learning review. Also, make sure that all data displayed does not contain any student names. The indicators within this section are all level 1 and should be part of any team. The co-teaching team should have all of these in place really early within the cycle, and evidence should be appearing within the classroom data wall. If you have any questions concerning these indicators, randomly ask a student during your observation to explain what each one means. These indicators should also be evident during an observation and by talking with the teachers and the students. If you do not see evidence of the PDSA cycle being used on a daily basis, then most, if not all, of these indicators would be marked non-evident. The last indicator is focused on student input about next steps in instruction. Evidence may be found on the ACT portion of the PDSA cycle or in the student plus deltas. Have teachers to encourage students when completing plus deltas to summarize what they liked or they didn't like about an activity, a strategy, etc. This allows for students to reflect on how they learn best and provides valuable information on the next steps in self-learning. For these indicators, you will need to answer the following questions. Are students making progress toward the classroom goal? And is that progress the result of teachers and students immersing themselves in the CCI process? The first question can be answered by comparing the classroom goal to current student data. If progress is not being made, coaching may be needed in order to help the team change some of their instructional practices. If the class is making progress toward their goal, but the steps of CCI are not evident during the observation, then this indicator is non-evident. All internal coaches should have received the link to both the implementation check and the classroom level coaching report from Shannon Fry on September 14th. If you did not, first check your spam folder. Then contact your external coach in order to be sent the links. And finally, make sure that you check your email address for accuracy. A quick way to the link is to store it on your computer desktop. This is done by highlighting the link address and then dragging it in onto the desktop. You might want to check your computer for specific directions. Finally, if you're unable to use the email link, here is the web address for the implementation check. The online version looks different from the paper copy. The next few slides look at those differences in order to eliminate any confusion. If questions arise about the indicators, please refer back to the implementation check reference guide for specific information. On the online version, you're given the opportunity to enter notes as you complete each section of the implementation check. These notes will appear in the recap that you will receive via email once the implementation check has been completed. The first pages of the link contain general information about your observation, the team observed, etc. Now, unlike the paper copy, you will need to provide specific information regarding your external coach, cooperative region, the name of the school, the co-teaching team, etc. If you incorrectly identify any portion of this information, you will receive this message. Shannon then will contact you about the information, and you will not be able to proceed until this information is corrected. Next, you'll be asked to provide specific information about the classroom that you are observing. Unlike the paper copy, you will need to identify a specific grade. Now, if the class you are observing has students in multiple grades, then select the grade of the majority of the students. Well, for example, a high school geometry class may contain students in grades 9 through 12. However, if geometry is considered a sophomore level math class, then select 10. Also, notice the format regarding the date of observation. If the month or the day is a single digit, you will need to add a 0 in front of the number. All 4 digits of the year need to be entered also. Finally, in order to maintain the fidelity of this instrument, observations must be at least 30 minutes in length, and really should be the entire class period, in order for you to observe all indicators. Once again, you're encouraged to review the handbook and the reference guide for specific information regarding the co-teaching approaches. However, you can also access the information about an indicator by clicking on the blue question mark. Information on the co-teaching approaches will appear and allow you an opportunity to review. Once finished, close the window of the help box and continue. All the information on the online version of the implementation check must be answered. If an indicator is skipped, you will receive a message that looks like this. Once you enter the missing information, you will click the forward arrow and get back to the implementation check. Once you've completed the implementation check, you will receive an overview of the information you marked as either evident or non-evident. Included in this summary will be the notes you entered. Once you've completed all the information and selected Enter, you will receive this message. If you do not, then an error has been made. If you have other observations, you merely click here and you will be linked back to page 1 of the live implementation check. Once you submit your data, you will receive a summary report via email. Check the summary with your paper copy to make sure no corrections are needed. If you do not receive an email copy of the summary, the information was not successfully entered and it cannot be retrieved. Just another good reason to always make a paper copy. If mistakes are made, please contact Shannon Fry. Once again, these 2 resources will greatly help you with your understanding of the indicators and ensure greater fidelity of your observation. It's strongly encouraged to have both handy during your initial observations, and they can really help with both coaching and/or your PLCs. Finally, just a reminder, to ensure the fidelity of this implementation check, which was developed by the staff of the Kentucky Department of Education, the University of Louisville, and the University of Kentucky, only schools and/or districts who have received all mandated co-teaching for gap closure professional development may utilize this instrument.